The tensions between Russia and Ukraine continue to escalate. Russia has deployed its soldiers and tanks in the separatist areas of Ukraine in the name of peacekeeping. The civilians of Ukraine are now being given training for bearing arms because of the all-out war. Let's understand this in today's video.
Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the largest invasion of a neighboring country in Europe since World War II.
The situation has been worsening for the last many months. On 10 November 2021, the news broke out for the first time that Russia has started deploying its military soldiers to Ukraine's border. By 28 November, it has become clear that more than 100,000 Russian troops were present on Ukraine's border, and that they could attack at any time between mid-January to early February. By December, the news had reached the U.S. intelligence, leading to a warning by U.S. President Joe Biden to the Russian authorities. He said that if there was any invasion into Ukraine of any kind, Russia would have to face severe repercussions. He told President Putin directly that, if Russia further invades Ukraine, the United States and our European allies would respond with strong economic measures. The U.S. intelligence agencies claimed that on 16 February, Russia will declare war on Ukraine. But nothing happened on 16 February. This was widely mocked by the Russian authorities, saying that America always spouts nonsense, and that they wouldn't have done anything, and that America was simply creating a sensation. But on 21 February, Putin gives this address on television. Putin addresses the entire world and says that there are two separatist areas in eastern Ukraine. They now recognize the separatist areas as independent countries. After a day of lashing out at NATO, Putin made an explosive announcement on state television. I think it is necessary to make a long overdue decision to immediately recognize the independence and sovereignty of the Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic. The names of the two regions are Donetsk and Luhansk. Let's take a look at the map. The actual boundary of Ukraine, according to the United Nations, looks like this from the outside. In eastern Ukraine lies the regions Donetsk and Luhansk. They're special because some areas of Donetsk and Luhansk is actually controlled by separatists. They are not under the control of the Ukrainian government. These areas lie on the Russian border and are actually known as Russian-occupied. I won't get into the entire history now. I will talk about it in detail in the other video on Russia and Ukraine. Almost 800,000 people living in these provinces. To stop the tensions and foster peace in these areas, the Minsk Agreement was signed in 2015. According to that, Ukraine had to provide special status to these regions, to give them a certain degree of autonomy. They had to acknowledge the governments of the areas, and it was promised that there would be no more riots, no weapons would be used, and the foreign presence in this area would be eradicated. But Putin said that Russia considers those areas as independent countries, and now that Putin has sent his army to those areas, it is now being called an invasion. Putin's action has caused the Minsk Agreement to be null and void. The threat now is that Putin wouldn't stop here. I would like to point out one important thing here. Since the Soviet Union has broken apart, after every 6-7 years, Russia does such things to its neighboring countries. In 2014, Russia occupied Crimea. Before this, in 2008, Russia occupied some areas of Georgia. Look at this map. The regions of Abkhazia and South Ossetia are actually under Russian occupation. About 20% of the country of Georgia is actually under Russian occupation. Moving on, there's a country called Moldova in Eastern Europe. A big chunk of it that lies on its eastern side is a separatist area called Transnistria. The separatists living there consider themselves to be a new country, and they actually want to reunify with Russia. So there's a lot of Russian influence in this Transnistria region. At this point in time, you can see the status update on this map. This is Ukraine's map. The area under the control of the Ukrainian government is shown in white, and the red on this map show how the Russian forces are invading Ukraine from three sides. The area in red has already fallen to the control of the Russian military. The reports show that by now, 136 Ukrainians have lost their lives. More than 100,000 people had to evacuate their homes, and several thousands of them are leaving Ukraine. If you look at this map again, you'd see that in the south and east, the Russian forces have been quite successful in their missions. But in northern Ukraine, the Ukrainian forces have been holding them off bravely. Martial law has been imposed in Ukraine, a state of emergency where restrictions on the movement of people have been imposed. Political parties have been banned temporarily to maintain national security and public order, and instead of the police, the Ukrainian soldiers are now responsible for enforcing the law. Additionally, Ukraine has said that every man from the age of 18 to 60 cannot leave the country. All able-bodied men need to be prepared for the war. More than 10,000 assault rifles are being given to civilians. The rifles are being distributed among the common folks so that they can protect themselves and can stand up to fight against the Russian army. Others are taking shelter in Ukraine's underground metro station. These are the scenes from there.
Було тривожно, тривожно. По півночі не спав. Кожної ночі майже не спав. Ну, жахливе почалося тільки вчора. Я майже до 5 якраз не спав. Потім проспав саме вторгнення. Через 2 години прокинувся вже сирени.
Seeing Russia do this, the rest of the world has three main options. The first is that they do nothing about it. But then the danger is that if Russia is allowed to occupy Ukraine today, tomorrow Russia may say that they want Kazakhstan, Mongolia, Slovakia, Croatia back. They continue expanding by invading all of them. If such imperialism isn't stopped, someday or the other, we will be under attack too. The second option is that the countries use their military and send their armies at the locations Russia is invading, stopping the Russian forces by literally fighting with them. But this isn't a good option, because doing so would mean literally declaring world war. And thankfully, most of the countries today don't want to fight or go on a war, because that just leads to bloodshed, loss of human lives, and there can be no positive result of that. NATO has indeed deployed their military. 5,000 NATO troops have been deployed to Poland. 4,000 can be sent to countries like Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Slovakia. But these are the NATO countries. Ukraine is not a part of NATO yet. So even if Ukraine is at war, the chances are that NATO will not interfere with that. It won't provide military support to Ukraine. But it's for sure that NATO has tried to help Ukraine in some other ways by providing weapons, advanced weaponry, providing them financial help. But no country is sending their soldiers to fight on behalf of Ukraine. So Ukrainians are alone here. And if you look at Ukraine's military strength against Russia, Ukraine is very weak. You can see it in this chart. Russia's active soldiers are 4 times that of Ukraine's, 15 times the number of fighter jets that Ukraine has, more than 5 times the number of tanks. And that's why Ukraine is considering deploying more than 250,000 of its reserve forces. Civilians are also being trained. The common people of Ukraine acknowledge this threat, and to protect their country from an invasion, they are coming to the forefront. But Russia has literally threatened other countries that they would use nuclear bombs if any other country goes to interfere. What other option does the rest of the world have? The third option is economic sanctions. Economically, if others try to isolate Russia, to attack Russia economically, to attack their might.
Announcing the first tranche of sanctions.
These sanctions are a major step.
And we hold further sanctions at readiness to be deployed.
The U.S. and its allies coordinated a first round of sanctions against Russia over its troop deployment to breakaway regions of Ukraine.
The UK has targeted 5 Russian banks. The United Nations has also condemned this. And perhaps the most important economic sanction was from Germany. Germany has stopped the certification of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. This is a big step. More than 50% of Germany's gas supply comes from Russia. To take such a step means that Germany is interrupting its own gas supply. It means that the gas prices in Germany would rise rapidly. This is the thing about economic sanctions. When some other country is isolated, when you try to attack economically, it affects your country too. This would be the most devastating war in Europe since World War II. All of us know what happened in World War II. Any sensible person wouldn't want a repeat of that. My prayers are with Ukrainians, and let us hope this all ends soon. This is Sean signing off. Take care. Have a nice day.